You know that feeling of creative flow, right? It feels so rare, so uncontrollable, almost accidental. We tend to treat it like this happy accident, a lightning strike of inspiration we just have to wait for. But what if that's completely wrong? What if flow isn't something you find, but something you build? That's the system we're going to decode today. And this, right here, is the central signal. We've been taught to treat flow as this emotional state we have to chase, but all the evidence points somewhere else entirely. Flow isn't a feeling, it's a structural outcome. It's the predictable result when you design the right kind of creative environment. So, first things first, let's talk about that state of immersion. We need to demystify the feeling itself, really separate the experience of flow from the actual mechanics that make it happen. And the contrast here is absolutely critical. On the left, you've got the common myth. Flow is mystical, emotional, something you just stumble upon if you're lucky. But the system view, over on the right, is a total game changer. It frames flow as structural, cognitive, and predictable, an outcome you actually engineer. Sure, the feeling might be magical, but the conditions that create it are purely mechanical. Okay, so let's get into the first signal. This isn't about your mood or how motivated you feel. It's about a very precise calibration between the challenge in front of you and the skill you bring to it. We call this the calibration effect. The key idea here is this calibration effect. See, flow isn't just about being good at something. It's about your brain operating at its sweet spot, at its optimal error rate. You're making just enough mistakes to stay completely engaged, but not so many that you get overwhelmed and frustrated. It's a state of productive struggle. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. When your skill is way higher than the challenge, what happens? You get bored. Your brain just isn't engaged. On the other end, when the challenge totally crushes your current skill level, you get anxiety. But right there in the middle, that tight channel where challenge and skill are almost perfectly matched, that is the flow zone. So the takeaway is flow is a function of calibration, period. Now for our second signal. This one completely reframes the whole purpose of having a goal. It's not about giving you a direction, it's about eliminating distraction. It's about collapsing the noise. You know, we're all taught that a goal's purpose is to motivate us, to give us something to shoot for. But when we're talking about engineering flow, that's actually a huge misunderstanding of what a goal is really for. The real job of a truly clear goal is to act as an attentional compression device. Just think about that phrase. Its purpose isn't to inspire you. It's to eliminate all the cognitive noise, all that wasted energy that goes into deciding what to do next. It frees you up to focus all your energy on how to do the work. And this is the core insight right here. You can't get into a state of immersion if your brain is constantly splitting its focus, asking, okay, what now? Is this the right path? Flow only kicks in when the what is so crystal clear that every ounce of your cognitive power can be dedicated to the how. So you've got a calibrated challenge and a clear goal. The third and final signal is what keeps flow going over time. And that's the power of progress. Yeah, just like with goals, we tend to get the function of progress all wrong. We think of it as the prize you get at the end for all your hard work. But in the flow system, its real job is to be an attentional stabilizer. It's the feedback, the hard evidence that tells your brain your effort is actually turning into forward movement. And this triggers a chain reaction. First, when you see tangible progress, it reinforces your engagement. It proves the system is working. Then, as this happens, momentum starts to build, and you stop constantly self-monitoring and second-guessing yourself. Finally, once you're not tracking yourself or the clock anymore, your perception of time just collapses. That is deep immersion. Flow is what happens when your effort consistently produces evidence of movement. Okay, so understanding these three signals, calibration, clarity, and progress, it really requires a fundamental shift in how we think about our creative work. It's the difference between being someone who chases a feeling and someone who designs a system. Just look at this comparison. The novice on the left is totally passive. They're chasing a feeling, they're waiting around for inspiration to strike, they're looking for external motivation. The architect on the right is active. They design systems, they intentionally calibrate the challenge, they build their own feedback loops. They are not waiting for the conditions to be right, they are creating them. So the whole thing boils down to this. Elite creators, the ones who seem to tap into this state of immersion so consistently, they aren't luckier, they aren't more inspired. They are simply better architects of their own creative environments. They get the physics of flow.
All right, let's wrap this up by turning the analysis back on you. It's time to use these signals to diagnose your own system with 3 final questions.
First, where do you lose time? And look, this isn't about blaming yourself for procrastination. This is a diagnostic question. Where does the time go? Is it because the challenge is miscalibrated, either too boring or way too frustrating? Is your attention leaking everywhere because your goal just isn't clear enough?
Second, what are you actually aiming for? Is your goal serving as a true attentional compression device, or is it some vague aspiration that's actually creating more cognitive noise? Does it eliminate decisions, or does it just create more of them?
And finally, what will you create next? Now, this isn't just asking about your next project. It's about recognizing that every single act of creation is also an act of designing the system that produces it. Your output is always a reflection of your environment. So how are you going to architect yours?